Welcome back to another episode of the Prep Extra Podcast. I'm Colton Stone alongside, as always, Chris Basnett. Chris, we are at the semifinals.
How about that?
I know, it feels like just last week we were talking about, the playoffs are finally here. Well, the
Yep.
playoffs are almost done.
The playoffs are almost over. Yep.
So time flies when you're having fun, but, plenty of teams, sticking on that theme, plenty of teams had fun last week. Plenty of teams obviously see their season come to an end in the quarterfinals. Few surprises, much like last week, couple seed upsets. There are actually a couple, legitimate upsets.
Yeah.
A few blowouts, a lot of high-scoring games, a lot of low-scoring games. This week was kind of just all over the place.
It was a smorgasbord.
Yeah. But it's, we're getting truly into crunch time. We're entering what you'd consider football weather. We may start seeing, in most classes, more of those 24 to 17 games. But overall, as we go into the semifinals, what's the general feeling, I suppose?
Yeah, like you said, not a lot of real big surprises. I don't think there's some lower seeds that won, but at the same time, it's you take like Creighton Prep for example.
Yeah.
Class A, an 11 seed. Not really a surprise that they're in the semifinals. We knew they were pretty good. They played a really tough schedule early. Just happened to get Elkhorn South by a score last week. Yeah. Not a huge shock. Grand Island's the 4 seed. A lot of people had Millard South maybe making a run. It's maybe a little bit of a surprise, but still, Grand Island had a really good year. And so I think a lot of this, outside of maybe 1 or 2 games, and we'll get to this later on, but nothing that really you look at and go, holy cow, I did not see that coming at all.
Yeah.
And so it's that time of year when the cream rises to the top, right? And we've seen that for the most part. And occasionally you'll get the Cinderella here and there. Mm-hmm. We kind of saw that with Columbus Lakeview last year when they won the title. But this year it's been by and large teams that you're not surprised to see in these positions.
Yeah, and it's sometimes hard. I know we maybe talked at the very beginning of the playoffs. Sometimes it's hard looking at a team that, this is an 8 seed, but their 2 losses are the team that's the 1 seed and the 3 seed. Yeah. So it's like, are they really not bad? Are they as bad as their seed says they are? No, not necessarily. So, and like you said, sticking with Class A, Creighton Prep's a perfect example. 6-3, you're thinking, okay, North Platte and Creighton Prep, they're 5 seeds apart, but they got the same record. So, and then Creighton Prep and Elkhorn South. Elkhorn South, you thought maybe matched up better, undefeated, seemed like they had things rolling, and then it just they kind of met their maker a little bit against Creighton Prep.
Yeah, and let's be honest, Elkhorn South did have it rolling. Cole Ballard had a great year, 38 touchdowns, I think. That offense had been rolling, and Prep holds them to 3 points. I think they forced 5 turnovers, and Elkhorn South had 4 turnovers all season coming into the game. It was just one of those games where Creighton Prep's defense really took over. Creighton Prep scored early in the first quarter, and Elkhorn South drove a couple times, got into Creighton Prep territory, couldn't finish the job. The defense stepped up and made plays. So, yeah, again, it's a deal where you look at that game, and is it a surprise that Prep won? Maybe a little, just when you look at records. But at the same time, again, go back to the beginning of the season. Prep nearly beat Bellevue West. They nearly beat Gretna. They played Gretna as tough as pretty much anybody this year other than Bellevue West, who had them down big early in that regular season game. And so, at the end of the day, not a real surprise to see Prep in this position.
Yeah, and then you look when you look at the other 2 matchups, of course, the 1 seed and the 2 seed move on, West Side and Gretna. Lean Southwest essentially had West Side right where they wanted them. You'd think leading at halftime, coming out, maybe if you can just string, not a lot of momentum, but kind of just take what you have and, milk the clock, maybe just milk some of the game.
Yep.
And West Side, again, showed why they make better adjustments at halftime.
Yeah, it was a deal where they hit the long run with Cal Newell right before half. Southwest does. They're up 21-14, and you're kind of raising an eyebrow because Southwest got the ball to start the second half. They got the kickoffs. You're going, okay, yeah, exactly like you said. If they drive the field, if they take 6 minutes off the clock here, kick a field goal, or at least run the clock down a little bit, you go, okay. But, man, West Side came out. It was 3 quick plays and out. And it was a punt, and they had the ball in Southwest territory, and pretty soon the game's tied. And that's just kind of how that whole second half went. You just saw West Side kind of take it to another level. I thought Southwest played just about as good as they could have played in the first half, and they forced a couple turnovers. They pick up 3 fourth downs. I think they're all 3 in their own territory. Mm-hmm. they kind of did what you have to do to pull an upset, and then you look up at halftime and they're only up 7. And so you knew that first drive of the second half was going to be important. And the way Westside came out and just kind of smacked him right away, you went, oh, okay. They took it up a notch. Now can Southwest match them? And the Silverhawks just weren't able to do it that second half.
Yeah, and Gretna against Bellevue West kind of showed that I would say they're probably still the proverbial favorite.
Yeah.
As you look at the 2 semifinals.
Yep.
So, in Class B, not too much to write home about here in Class
Pretty chalky
B.
in Class B,
Yeah,
yep.
feels like we kind of, I'd almost say nailed this maybe even before the playoffs started, really. Bennington and Waverly in the top half of the bracket, Scottsbluff and Omaha Gross. Nothing really close. Every team kind of played to their strength. Waverly, of course, gives up 1 score and says, okay, you can have 7, and we'll take it from here. Scottsbluff, big win. Omaha Gross, big win. Bennington, ground and pound. I mean, this is kind of exactly what we thought these 2 matchups would shake out to be.
It's the same thing we've seen the whole year, where it's kind of that top 5 group of teams and then everybody else, and then Elkhorn, of course, gets upset in the first round by Northwest. but other than that, this is the best 4 teams in the class probably, and now they're meeting in the semifinals. That Scottsbluff Gross game, I think, is going to be a great game. Scottsbluff's got to get on the bus and come east again after they got to host a couple of home games and have Plattsmouth and Scott come out their way, which they definitely earned. There's no doubt about that. But Bearcats, no strangers to get on the bus. Played at Pius, played at Waverly, played at York this year. They know the routine. They're not going to be scared of it or afraid of it or unfamiliar with it. I think that's really going to be a great game. Waverly, it's kind of that formula, right? Can they score early and lean on that defense? And it's a different animal when you're playing Bennington for sure. But boy, if Waverly can get up 10-0, make Bennington have to score a couple times against your good defense. Never know. We saw it with Southwest last week, and they got that game to the second half with the lead, and that's really all you can ask for as the underdog. So that's kind of the spot Waverly's in right now.
Yeah, if you look at the Vikings, essentially the goal is make Bennington uncomfortable. Is what it is. Bennington wants to run the ball. They want to control the line of scrimmage. And if they get into a position where, hey, we don't have enough time, or we think we can run the ball enough, now if they have to start going to the air, can Waverly make them uncomfortable on the offense side of the ball? It's possible.
Yeah.
But you would probably still lean Bennington if they can keep their kind of game moving.
Yeah, no doubt. Look, it's been the Badgers all year. We've known that, and they're going to be a favorite again Friday night, but that's why you play them, right? Yep. Waverly's going to have a shot.
Yeah, looking at Class C1 as we just kind of go down the list here, again, a couple surprises, nothing too shocking. Pierce, of course, takes care of business. Aurora takes care of business. Boone Central, big win over Ashland Greenwood.
Yeah.
We were, we had mentioned, starting the playoffs, how would Ashland Greenwood kind of work through a couple of these injuries, some of their leadership players. Mm-hmm. They got through the first week pretty clean, and then they ran into a good Boone Central team where they just, once you fell behind, there wasn't really a sense of, okay, they can find a way back.
Yeah, I think it was still where the snowball just got rolling downhill there. Ashland Greenwood's up 7-0 after 1 quarter in that game, and probably kind of has that game where they won it. You're playing a team that's pretty well your equal when you look at just results, things like that from throughout the year. Boone lost to Aurora and Pierce. Ashland Green, of course, lost to Aurora. No shame in that. But yeah, I think the injuries maybe caught up with Ashland Greenwood a little bit, and there's no shame in that. It's two of your best guys, at the end of the day. And Boone got it rolling, and that can happen in the playoffs. There's that little bit of extra sense of desperation, especially when you fall behind like Ashland Greenwood did, and all of a sudden you look up and it's out of hand. And so that doesn't take away from what Ashland Greenwood did this year. It also says a lot about what Boone Central's been able to do this year with the way they've competed. Now they get another shot at Aurora in the semifinals, which is all you want. You want a chance to avenge a loss, and you go from there. And then on the other side, Adams Central's in a semifinal for I think the 3rd time in 4 years. Won a rematch game against McCook last week. McCook's quarterback was out, probably made a difference there, but Patriots get Pierce. That's been a postseason matchup, a couple times over these last few years. So not, like you said, maybe not huge surprises. The 2 heavy favorites are still there. Can they kind of take that next step now and kind of get to where everybody expects them to be next week?
Yeah, we've been eyeing an Aurora Pierce final, or wherever they might have shaken out in these playoffs. We've been waiting for that matchup, and this is the week where we find out is it meant to be as it has been maybe the previous 10 to 11 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
And C2. Now this is where we start to see a little bit of the playoff get hot at the right time. Kind of mentality here. Battle Creek takes out number 1 Hastings St. Cecilia. Hartington Cedar Catholic beats Malcolm in overtime. Norfolk Catholic. See, the top half is surprising. The bottom half, Norfolk Catholic and Ord. That's exactly what we kind of thought.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So, but looking at that top half, that's 2 big wins. We're looking at the 12 and the 9 playing each other in the top half.
It goes back to that argument of should the higher seed get the host all the way through the playoffs. St. Cecilia, the top seed, has to go on the road, drive 2.5 hours, play at Battle Creek, who's really good. Had a good year in C1 last year, dropped down into C2. That's not a huge upset there. We know the Braves have a good team, but is it different if that game's maybe in Hastings with the higher seed hosting? And same for Malcolm. Malcolm playing as well as anybody in the class maybe the last month of the season. They've got to go on the road to Hartington. The offense that had been so good just kind of dries up. It just shows you how funny this game is. They kick a field goal to tie it, then they miss an extra point in overtime. And Hartington scores on 4th down, kicks their extra point, wins. And that just shows you how small the margins are. Does that flip if that game's in Malcolm instead? Now you've got to play who's in front of you, no matter where it is. And you give credit to Battle Creek and Cedar Catholic, especially Cedar Catholic, who's pretty banged up right now and kind of finding a way. But do those games flip, or does even that Malcolm game, a 1-point game, flip if it's in Malcolm and Cedar Catholic's the one traveling?
Yeah.
We'll never know.
It's very possible. Yeah, it is an argument of, obviously it's harder to play on the road in the playoffs. You'd like to have that home matchup at all costs.
Yeah.
And it didn't shake out that way. And then looking at the bottom, again, like we said, Norfolk Catholic, Ord, not really surprised. Ord had a bit of a battle on their hand with Oakland Craig, and then Norfolk Catholic and Lincoln Lutheran decided to just have a shootout and just go back and forth until someone stopped scoring, essentially.
Yeah, and the issue for Lincoln Lutheran was they never stopped Norfolk Catholic. I think they scored on every possession, and Norfolk Catholic throws in an interception return, I believe, or something like. They scored some way that kind of got it screwed up. But you give a lot of credit to Lincoln Lutheran. That's a team that started 0-2, and you kind of wonder where that season was going, and then you end up getting that home game in the quarterfinals, and you push a really, really good team, probably the favorite in that class, into the fourth quarter. So a lot of credit to the Warriors for hanging in there. Garrett Hofs throws for 400-plus yards. Johnny Pels had a great year receiving. I think he went over 1,300 receiving yards in that game for the year. So a lot of credit to the Warriors for pushing Norfolk Catholic.
Yeah, again, obviously the momentum of the season kind of just carried into the playoffs, but getting hot at the right time, and they're right there against, probably the favorite in that class, and you give them all the credit for at least being in the game, because they could have easily not been. Right?
Yeah.
Looking at D1, North Platte St. Pat's, easy win. Kind of a little bit of what we expected.
Surprisingly easy. Yeah. I think we expected St. Pat's to win, but 56-0 at halftime against Elmwood Murdoch, and we think back to the beginning of the year, and Elmwood Murdoch put 95 points on the board that first game and 70-some the next week.
Yeah,
that offense is tough. So that tells you something about St. Pat's for sure.
And then Neely Oakdale moving on against Riverside again. The score not extremely close, but it'll be an interesting matchup as, of course, St. Pat's has to go to Neely to play Neely Oakdale.
Mm-hmm. Again, that's a 1 seed having to go on the road in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think, of course, we've said most of the season North Platte St. Pat's, that's probably who's going to come out of whatever side of the bracket they're on. But it comes back to, can Neely Oakdale do enough at home to make St. Pat's uncomfortable with the way they play?
I think they can, because they have Aiden Kuster, who just set the national 8-man record for career total offense. And they can run it, they can throw it. How does St. Pat's go about slowing him down? You don't stop a guy like that, of course. Can they slow him down enough? You're probably thinking you're going to have to win a game that's probably 48-45, something like that. It's probably going to be a shootout, you would think. We'll see what that looks like. That's going to be a really, really fun game. Might be the game of the weekend outside of in the 8-man, 6-man ranks. Going to be a lot of fun, I think, in that game. And on the other side, Stanton just kind of quietly continues to roll. They're unbeaten. It doesn't feel like we've talked about them a whole lot this year. And that's a team that's got a lot of really good young talent. They're going to be around for the next couple of years, but they might do it right now. And we've talked so much about St. Pat's. We've talked so much about cross county teams like that. You kind of forget about Stanton sitting out there unbeaten, and they've got Clarkson Lee, who's only lost on a Hail Mary to Cross County this year. That's going to be another really, really good semifinal. So 2 really good semis in this class. I think whoever wins those games, either way they go, I think you're going to have a really great final there. So that should be a fun class to watch.
Yeah, and we saw Weeping Waters' Cinderella run fall just short of a semifinal appearance. But I mean, big credit to them for getting win over Cross County, right? Win over.
Beat 2 unbeaten teams to get to the quarterfinals.
And then again, you look at the score. It wasn't close necessarily speaking, but I mean, big props to them for even getting there.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
D2, a little chalky, I suppose, but
so many good teams. It's tough to say there was a whole lot of upsets.
Yeah, this is a perfect example of a bracket where you look. Central Valley, who's in the semifinals against Howells Dodge, was 7-1 as the 12 seed.
Yeah,
I mean, It's just you look up and down. It's like there wasn't really none of these teams were ever going to be a bad team.
Yeah,
they were all going to give you fits in some way. Yep. Now Howells Dodge, of course, rolls 58-8. Central Valley pretty much controlled the game against BDS, but that's another semifinal that is very interesting. At least Howells gets that home game.
Mm-hmm.
Will that play a factor?
Could, and let's not. I mean, look, we know what Howells Dodge is. They're here every year. They're not unfamiliar with this stage. Maybe a little different for Central Valley. You're going into a place that has hosted how many of these types of games, over the last 10, 15, 20 years. So, look, that's a one-loss team and an unbeaten team. You never know what's going to happen, but we've seen Howells Dodge all year. They might be the best 8-man team, whether it's D1, D2. Doesn't matter. I think they're just really, really good. It's going to be a tough road to hoe for Central Valley, but again, that's why you play them.
Yeah. Then looking at Bloomfield and Hitchcock County again, Bloomfield to 6, they get past Wynot in a somewhat contested game, and then Hitchcock County, 2 weeks in a row has just rolled, and it looks like we're kind of on a crash course for Howells Dodge Hitchcock County, but Bloomfield is, right there. They can score points, much like Hitchcock County can. So that may be another game where who has the ball last or who can just put together consecutive scores.
Yeah, and you talk about Bloomfield, a team, again, that's their year after year after year. The stage isn't going to bother them. Hitchcock had a kind of a surprising run last season, and all they've done this year is back it up. Maybe the best defense in D2. They've just shut teams down. And you talk about Bloomfield, beat Osceola in the first round. A lot of us, I think, thought Osceola might make a run in that bracket. And they won a 44-42 game, and now they're kind of off and running. And again, unbeaten team, one-loss team. You almost flip a coin in that situation. I think Hitchcock County, at least for us, in this part of the state, is kind of the great unknown. We just don't see them, being out where they are. So that's one of those kind of really interesting cross-state matchups, that you're only going to see, in a state tournament, whether it's football, basketball, whatever. So really interested to see what that game ends up looking like.
And now, Chris, of course, my bread and butter here, 6-man football. Interesting, to say the least. We had our eyes on an SEM Parkview Christian rematch. They both take care of business 2 weeks in a row. There they are right there at the top of the bracket, taking on each other. Parkview Christian will get to host SEM, if I'm correct.
That's correct, yep.
Okay, and then looking at the bottom side, Pawnee City taking out Potter Dix. I would say a big surprise, especially since you look at Potter Dix, 109 points one week, next week 47. It's just like Pawnee City kind of put together, I guess, a formula, for lack of a better term, of, I guess, not giving up 100 points, right? So, and then Arthur County, we kind of, the Hay Springs thing was somewhat of the surprise. I thought maybe Arthur County, Cody Kilgore, that would have been an interesting matchup too, but Arthur County takes care of business against Hay Springs. So both sides are intriguing to me. One, you got a rematch, and on the other side, Potter Dix, who I think most of us would have said they are a runaway favorite. They should win the six-man title, is now out.
Yeah, that's probably the upset of the playoffs for me, and I'm talking any class. And it doesn't get the attention that maybe it should because it's six-man, because it happened out in the Panhandle. That's a team, Potter Dix, that was as dominant against its competition as any team in the state. And it doesn't matter if it's Class A, Class C, 1, whatever. You're talking about a team that won its games by an average of 70 points. I mean, they were putting up basketball numbers week in, week out. They scored 109 last week. They're up 20-8 on Pawnee City after one quarter. You're going, okay, here they go.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you look up and you see that final score, and that was the one score where I really kind of shook my head and said, wow. Because I think everybody just about in the state, maybe outside of the people in Pawnee City's locker room, said Potter Dix is going to roll all the way through to the championship. And that's the beauty of it, right? And that happened on Potter Dix's home field, too. Let's not forget that. We've been talking about road trips and things like that. So, yeah, really, really impressive by Pawnee City. Now Arthur County, who's been sitting there unbeaten right behind Potter Dix all year, and again, overshadowed because of what the Coyotes were doing. Another unbeaten team, and they're going, okay, maybe our road looks a little different now. And so, interesting game there. The more interesting game is at the top of the bracket.
Yes,
and I think we know that. SEM won the first game 20-16. Parkview Christian certainly wants another shot after what happened. They're up 16-0 and driving in that game. Running back gets knocked out of the game on a late hit near the sideline. SEM wins 20-16. Both teams have rolled since then. So you know Parkview's ready for that rematch, and it's something where they probably saw that bracket come out and said, okay, let's just get there and see what happens. So afternoon kick, if you're not doing anything Friday afternoon, go watch that one, 2 o'clock up at Larry and Carroll Frostfield. I think that's really going to be a fun game just because of the storylines kind of leading into that one.
Yeah, this is kind of where you and I put it all on the table here. We said preseason Parkview Christian is the city's favorite at a chance at a title, and they lose to SEM after leading, win every game, and they're right back against the same team. So this, anything could happen on that bottom side. I think Arthur County, they've been in this spotlight before.
Yeah.
The only teams they've ever really been bested by are the McCool Junctions.
Yeah.
And the
teams that win
the
state
teams
titles.
that win state titles.
Yeah.
They always kind of get right there, and then the Potter Dix's, Cody Kilgore's, teams like that. But that'll be intriguing who comes out of there, but it really will, that top side, Parkview Christian I think has all the motivation in the world, and I think that is another game where whoever has the ball last, I think, wins that game.
Yeah, should be a lot of fun. One of the best weekends of the year, no doubt. State semifinals. After that, we're almost home. The following Friday is the 6-man state championship. 8-man championships follow next Monday with the C2 Monday night, C1, B, A Tuesday night. So we're almost there. It's been a fun year. We'll have full coverage of the playoffs this weekend, next weekend, the following week before you sit down for your Thanksgiving dinner. So stay with us. We'll have all the coverage you need.